It's really cushy and airy, and I just love how the texture came out with just a little bit of airiness. I think you're really going to enjoy working on this stitch. And welcome to the Stitch Sessions. I am really excited to show you guys a stitch tutorial today, and it is the block stitch. Now, I actually had already filmed the intro to this video, but accidentally deleted it. Way to go, Karen. So this is voiceover me showing you the final result of the block stitch. Now, this is not quite a lacy stitch, but yet it's not a dense stitch. So it has a little bit of airiness to it, and I think it would make for perfect for using like in cardigans, excellent for scarves and baby blankets. So I've seen a lot of people use this in baby blankets. It's a 2-row repeat, and if you know your single crochets and double crochets and you know how to chain, you are good to go with this stitch. And you can really be playful with it. You can do it in a single color, or you can color block it, or you can do it in alternating colors. You can see how beautiful all of these options create this lovely effect here. So that's what I'm going to show you today. And then I would love to know what you are going to create with your block stitch. So once you've crocheted up your creations, I'd love it if you tag me at the Stitch Sessions on Instagram. I always love to see your projects, and I'm just a color girl. I'm always excited to see what kind of color combinations that you guys choose to create these projects. In any case, we are working on the stitch itself today, so let's just dive in. Okay, so for this tutorial, I'm going to be using some medium 4-weight yarn. Many of you know this is one of my favorite yarns to work with. It's the Bernat Premium yarn. I'm not sponsored, but I do use this yarn a lot, especially for crochet tutorials. More often, I use this yarn for things like blankets and scarves. I just find it so fun and cushy. And in case you're wondering, the color I'm using is Baby Lilac. And if you saw my Daisy Granny Square and Half Daisy Granny Square, you'll know that I used this particular color in that tutorial. And of course, if you haven't seen it and you're interested in checking it out, I will leave a link to that tutorial down below. I know the Granny Daisy is one of the most popular granny motifs, especially this time of year. And again, it is a medium 4-weight yarn. And so the hook size I'm going to be using is a 6mm hook, which is also known as a J or a size 10. Now for this yarn, I do believe they call for a 5mm hook, but we're going up a hook size. That way you guys will be able to see the stitch definition a little bit clearer on camera. And anytime you're working on a project, just make sure that you have a yarn needle on hand to weave in your ends and a handy pair of scissors to snip your yarn. All right, guys, let's get to it. So we're going to begin by placing a slip knot on our hook here. And this stitch is created in multiples of 3 plus 1. So what that means is when you do your initial chain, you're going to chain in sets of 3 for as long as you need, and then you're going to add one more stitch at the end. So for this tutorial, I am going to stitch up a total of 22. So that is 7 sets of 3, which gives you 21. And then I'm going to add one more, which is 22. So you're just going to do a nice even chain to begin. Okay, and once you have your multiples of 3 plus 1, you will have something that looks like this. Really try your best not to stitch too tightly or too loosely in this first chain. It always can affect the sizing of your project. Okay, so this is a 2-row repeat. We're going to begin with row number 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the second chain from the hook. So remember, we never count that loop that's on the hook. So we're going to count 1 and 2, and into that chain, we are going to single crochet. Just like that, okay? And then we are going to single crochet into the next chain as well. So your row begins with 2 single crochet stitches, okay? Just like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2. So we have 1 and 2. Then you are going to skip the next 2 chains, 1, 2, and into the third, you will place a single crochet stitch. And this is essentially what we're going to repeat to the end of your row. So see that chain 2 creates a little space there. That's exactly what we want. So I'll do that again. So we chain 2, 1 and 2, and then we skip the next 2 chains, 1 and 2, and into the third, we single crochet. Again, chain 2, 1 and 2, skip 2 chains, and into the third, single crochet. And you can see I've got a few chain spaces forming there, okay? So you're gonna do that to the end of the row, and at the end, you're gonna have 1 chain left. So I will meet up with you at the end of row number 1. Okay, so I've come to the end of row 1, and I have 1 chain left. Into that last chain, you're just simply going to single crochet. So for all of your odd numbered rows, you are going to begin and end with 2 single crochets. So these are going to flank each of your rows. So you've got something that looks like this. For row number 1, you can see all your chain 2 spaces. Okay, nice and simple. And now we're going to go on to row number 2. And for row number 2, you chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. You will then turn your work, and this chain 3 will count as a double crochet stitch. Then what you're going to do is you are going to skip this next single crochet here, and you're going to work immediately into the chain space. So into the space, we are going to place a shell stitch, which is also known as 3 double crochets into one spot. So I'm going to yarn over into that space. I'm going to place 1 double crochet. I'm going to yarn over, and again, I'm going to place a second double crochet, and then I'm going to have 1 more. So I'm going to insert into that space and double crochet. Okay, so I have 3 double crochets. So that chain 3 counts as 1. We've skipped the single crochet here, and into the space we are going to place 3 double crochet stitches, and this is what we're going to repeat to the end of your row. So you're just going to always focus on the chain spaces. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to skip over this single crochet, and into the chain space I am going to work a shell stitch. So there's 1, there is 2, there is 3, and that is my next space filled up. So you just have something that looks like that. Okay, so that's all we're going to do. You're going to keep doing that till you get to the end of the row, and I will meet up with you after you've stitched into your last chain space. Okay, so I have just completed my last shell stitch into the last space, and I forgot to mention earlier that based on my initial chain of 22 chains, I end up having 6 chain spaces, and so for the second row, I end up having 6 clusters of 3 double crochets, or 6 shell stitches. So now we're at the end of row number 2, so what we're going to do is we're going to skip the next stitch, which is a single crochet, and into the last stitch, which is actually our turning chain there, we are just going to place a double crochet stitch. So it's going to flank your row nicely here. 1 double crochet stitch, just nicely like that. Again, remember, don't stitch too tightly because then your work is going to start to bunch like that. So just keep it nice and relaxed. Now, after the second row, sometimes it wants to because we've skipped these stitches here. But now when we repeat row 1, it'll kind of go back to its normal shape. So this is the stitch. You're just going to now repeat row 1 and row 2, and that's going to give you a nice block stitch. Now it's kind of tricky to see the full effect here. So I'm going to get you started on your repeat. So you would now chain 1, turn your work, and into the very first stitch, you're going to single crochet. Okay. And now, instead of going into the next stitch, what we're going to do is we're going to go into this space here, and we're going to single crochet. Okay, so remember the odd number rows start with 2 single crochets, but from here on out, After we've done the first one, the second one will go into the space between that double crochet and the shell stitch. Yeah. So now we're going to chain 2, just like we did in row number 1, and we're going to skip the shell stitch, and in the space between the 2 shell stitches is where we are going to single crochet. Okay, just like that. And we have a little chain space there. So let's do that again. We're going to chain 2, 1 and 2. We're going to skip the shell stitch, and into the space between the shells, we are going to single crochet, just like that. Okay, so again, chain 1 and 2, skip the shell, and into the space between the shells, you are going to single crochet. See, so now your chain spaces are sitting above your shell stitches. So now you're really going to start seeing that block-like effect. Okay, so I'm going to then continue chaining 2 into the space. Now right now too, you'll notice that I'm just using a single color here. What a lot of people like to do is they like to change colors between row 1 and row 2 to give you a really kind of interesting effect where the color of the chain row, just the single crochets peek out, and it gives a really, really cool effect. So right now I just used one color because I wanted you to just get the basic gist of how the stitch itself works. So I'm going to continue on and do a few more rows. So here I finished that last single crochet. I'm going to go into the space at the end here. Now remember, our chain loop row always has 2 single crochets at the beginning and at the end. So I single crocheted into the space, and now I want to find basically the top of that chain 1 if I can, or I just go into the second chain. It's not a big deal. And I'm going to single crochet, but I keep it nice and relaxed. Okay, so now we're back to having 2 single crochets at the beginning and 2 single crochets at the end. Okay, and then when I go on to row number 4, which is a repeat of row number 2, I start with a 3 chains. That will count as a double crochet. I turn my work. And remember, I'm going to skip this single crochet and work into the chain space. Yeah. And so what we're doing is placing a shell stitch into the space. So I think you guys have the gist of this now. There we go. So now the shell stitches are falling one on top of the other. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on. I'm going to repeat row 1 and 2 to show you the full effect. I'm going to just create a larger swatch so you can see what it really comes out to look like, but you can see how pretty that stitch is going to be. Here is the full worked up stitch. So as you can see here in the last few rows, I did change colors to show you guys the effect. So where the yellow is, that's where our chain space row is. And so once you do the shell stitches in your main color, the chains get hidden and the single crochets come through, and it creates such a really pretty effect. This would look super cute in a baby blanket. I've seen lots of people do this in baby blankets. Scarf would be nice. You can even do this in your cardigans and things like that. So you see how it has a little bit of not exactly a lacy texture. It's just a little bit airy, not quite as dense, but super, super cute. So I finished off 14 rows here. And so you can see what it looks like when it's all one color, which is also super pretty. And then the effect if you're using 2 colors. So that is your block stitch. I hope you found it super easy. If you know double crochets, single crochets, and chain stitches, you are good to go. Now, I'm not quite sure which I like best, a solid color or a color change. So a color change really gives a nice pretty contrast. The only thing is that most people would snip their yarn between the color changes in this particular stitch, and it just creates a ton of ends to weave in. Now in this scenario, I did not. I carried the yarn, so you can see how up the side the color is being carried. Now, if you were doing something like a baby blanket and you were going to do a border around it, then this would all get hidden away. But if you were planning on leaving your edges raw, then I would definitely recommend you snip your yarn after every row. And again, that's just going to leave you with a lot of ends to sew in. Or you could just do a one color and not worry about the ends. Now, I've also seen some people do like several rows of one color, and then let's say I did the yellow solidly in the next. So you could kind of color block it that way. And in fact, you know what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to work up a few rows just in the yellow to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so now you can see what I was talking about. So some people might opt to do a color block in several rows before they change colors. So it just decreases the amount of wet ends you have to weave in. So you can see how really cool that color change every other row is into the color block. In fact, I like the way this works because it looks like the purple and the yellow are merging in together. Isn't that lovely? So I hope this perhaps maybe is giving you some fun design ideas. And if you hadn't done this, if I just do this, then you can see how if you wanted to color block it, it looks pretty cool, just like that. And if you wanted to incorporate the alternating change, you've got something funky that looks like that. That would be really cool in a scarf. So, perhaps you might see one of these on my channel coming up soon. Or I'd love to see it. If you guys take this idea and run with it, make sure to tag me. I want to see the colorways that you guys choose. So that's it. That's all. That is the block stitch. And if you have any detailed questions, make sure to leave them for me in the comment box down below. I do know some of you like to just email me directly, so feel free to do that as well. You can email me at info@crochetcrafty.com. And remember, come and check out the website. There's a lot of great free material for you, lots of sizing tools, charts, things like that. A lot of free written patterns, as well as a link to my Etsy shop, which is Crochet Crafty Canada. Now, if you're new here and you enjoyed this tutorial, then I invite you to come and hang out with me more often. I upload a brand new video every Wednesday morning, so make sure to click that subscribe button and don't forget to click the notification bell, because sometimes YouTube isn't always kind of notifying you when my tutorials go live. So make sure you do that. And you can come say hi to me. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. All right, gang, that's it for now. I hope you have an amazing day. Happy crocheting as always. And I look forward to seeing you guys in next week's session. Bye-bye.